Annie, you as a business owner, and what are your thoughts on in the last 3 months, the way there has been a paradigm shift in the way things have changed. We are like as a humanity, like going out to restaurant, eating out is like a normal thing, and suddenly that has taken a pause. So the online transition has happened. So what do you see like going forward, let's say in the next 1 year or next 2 year, what changes do you see where people will adopt and kind of go forward?
I mean, I certainly wish I had a crystal ball on that one. Um, but like Pat was saying, the restrictions by market is one thing certainly we've had to look at. Another thing looking at from the barware side, right? When you're shifting to a consumer versus a professional bartender, a professional bartender knows the tools that they need and use to and they'll notice things like a fine strainer taking 15 seconds less to make a cocktail in high volume service makes a huge difference for their night. But for consumer side, you have to look at what's the perceived value from a consumer side. What can consumers identify with and use, that's going to make sense to market to them. And then also looking at the markets you're looking to sell into, because in addition to compliance, also, importing into various markets. Um, One that I just found out this week, everything into the Bahamas, every single thing is a 45% duty, right? So, does that kill yours or your client's margin? Um, and then in addition to shifting on premise versus off premise, in the alcohol world, it's really interesting because the in the on-premise world, there's a much greater variety of spirits that people are open to trying, right? Because if you have a cocktail bartender who you trust, who says, "Well, I know you normally drink Jim Beam, but maybe you should try Woodford Reserve today because it's got a little different kind of bourbon that you might actually like better," or any kind of example in that fashion. That's a pretty easy sell when you're buying a $12 cocktail. But moving the shift into off premise, it's hard to get a consumer to go into a liquor store and spend $60 on a bottle of booze that they're not, um, that they've never maybe tried before.
Right.
It's a little big brand, most people have tried, but um, so in general, then you look at dealing with liquor portfolios that are typically buying branded and custom barware for me to gift to on-premise bartenders in order to utilize their spirits more, which in the US cannot be done explicitly. We can't pay to play here. You can pay to play in other parts of the world. But either way, it's, the gifting still happens. But then when that all stops, so then where they have to focus on off-premise or liquor store or home to consumer marketing, then you have to look at companies and shifting your focus towards things like home cocktail kits, where we've seen that, where you can go on a site, there's Cocktail Couriers, the first one that's coming to mind, but they make beautiful kits and you get the booze and you get the recipe and you get the ingredients and then you can get the tools too. These are accounts we never even worked with pre-COVID. My hope in the shift moving forward is that on the consumer side, I always tend to say that consumers, when they learn, don't shift backwards, right? So consumers are never going to go back to Sanka and frozen mixed vegetables as an okay for a restaurant. And I'm probably dating myself, but once the coffee and the farm to table kind of came to consumers' eyes, consumers they don't then roll back on that. So my hope is that consumers, now that they sort of have to make their own decisions in order to be creative at home when they can't go out, that they're, as things do reopen, will become a more educated consumer going into bars and restaurants, so that their expectations will be higher, and everybody will be forced to elevate. No, I dream of a world where there's no sour mix, right? Like, so, things like that. And so what I'm hoping is that this time at home is going to ultimately create a more educated consumer, so that when they do go back out, we can keep both sides of the business. Obviously, I think a lot of it's dependent on getting a vaccine for this thing. But I love an educated consumer, because if you have a good product and your consumer's educated, that's to me the best marriage of two things.